we're already getting some big lore stuff. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess and Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we're here with episodes 6 through 8 of OKKO Let's Be Heroes Season 3. Yeah, we're not that far into the season, yet we're already getting some things that are pretty lore heavy, or at least some notable setups for the rest of the season. Some things that are very explicitly important, such as KO locking TKO in the depths of his mind, the stuff with Venomous being kind of a dick and terrible to both KO and Fink. It's like, dude, you are a terrible father to both of your children. and stuff like that. It's like we're getting notable stuff. And I like that. Like we're getting the goofy shit too. Like Raymond running around just trying to mess with everybody because he's Raymond. Um we're getting some goofy shit too, but we're getting, I feel, more important things earlier than I would have expected. And I'm not necessarily thinking that this season's going to be like drastically more serious or drastically more story focused. But it is the final season. We have to take that into account. And because of that, it probably does have to focus at least a little bit more than the first two seasons did. Because they've got to wrap it up. And whether or not this was canceled, I don't think I got my answer on that still. Um, and they had to kind of rush to finish this and everything. Whether or not it was actually canceled, or if it just ended on its own terms, like, it just feels like they're building towards that end already. And again, we've only seen the first 5 episodes so far of the season. So if they were canceled, it almost kind of feels like they were either told at the beginning of the season and they were going to be allowed to at least finish out the season and what they had planned. They just wouldn't get any more after that. Or they were already kind of building towards some big important shit, and they were told like near the end of the season, and they just kind of shifted that to focus more on like the conclusion of everything rather than the like just what they were planning. I feel like it's one of those two things, but I mean I can't be sure. I don't want to look too much up myself because I don't want possible spoilers. That's what I'm always worried about, especially with the finale. Like, I'm worried that if I look up whether or not this was canceled, I might accidentally see finale spoilers. And I just really want to avoid that. Because I don't really know what happens with this. I don't know exactly how it ends. I know one thing about the finale, and I just don't want to know anymore. I don't know how the season goes as a whole. There's a lot of things, like whether or not they're resolved, I don't know about. So I want to remain as spoiler free as possible. So I'm trying to avoid anything I can. Um, Mind you, this ended I think like a couple years ago at this point. I'm late to the party, as you would say. But still, it's like just to be safe. So yeah, I don't know what to expect going forward, but this has been really interesting so far. And in the first 5 episodes, like we haven't gotten much of the Boxmore stuff at all. We like saw them briefly, Shannon, Daryl. We saw them with Fink and Professor Venomous in that like last episode, but we haven't seen Boxman at all. And I don't remember like where it left off with him in season 2 because again, it's been years since I last reacted to this series. I don't exactly remember where it left off with him. Um, we haven't seen Jethro at all. Any of the Jethros, I guess. Or the cat one, whose name I can't remember. We only saw Raymond once, and he was, sent to the plaza. We didn't see him at the home. There's a lot we haven't touched on yet. And I don't know how much we're going to. But there's definitely things that I feel like we need to resolve before this ends. And I trust that Ian and the team will have done so, at least to a satisfactory enough level. Maybe not like quite to the degree that like Owl House managed to wrap things up in a satisfying way, despite being canceled. But I still have faith that they're going to do the best they can with this. So we're going to get to these 3 episodes today and see what we have in store. So let's get going. Cutting in here real quick to remind you of all the awesome content we have on the channel. Between Monday and Friday, we have a plethora of awesome series reactions with 2 on Wednesday. We have movie reactions every Saturday and Sunday. I do pre-record them during the week, but upload them on the weekend. And we have gaming content over on the Princess of Gaming channel. We have Baldur's Gate 3 every single day, Horizon Forbidden West every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, Beyond Two Souls on Wednesdays and Sundays, and Poppy Playtime every Saturday. And don't forget to click that link in the description to follow it to today's reaction. I do redirect everything on the channel just due to copyright. And on top of that, don't forget to click the subscribe button to subscribe to the channel and the like button to help support. It means a lot, and I thank you so much for tuning in. That being said, let's get to today's reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I'm a little mixed on these episodes this time, which, I mean, I feel like that happens a lot with this series. It's like, there's going to be some episodes that are just not as good or not as interesting. Or, like, have a good idea, but it's like, I've just seen it so many times, it's been overdone, and it really doesn't add anything new to the discussion with all of that. And then there's going to be episodes that I do really like, and this one kind of had a little bit of both. So let's talk about them in order. So we start with episode 6 here, the KO Trap. And this one was my favorite of the 3. By a notable amount. The KO Trap, they're chasing Daryl, who stole their doors into Boxmoor. And they end up getting trapped because Daryl led them into something Professor Venomous had set up. They awaken in a box, and through hitting a trap on the floor a couple times, both Enid and Rad are seemingly killed and turned into goo. Which, when Enid is the first one to do so, both Rad and KO obviously, like, freak the fuck out. Because, like, anyone would rightly do that. And then when it happens again to Rad, KO is just, like, kind of in full panic mode and is not doing well at all. And, he manages to escape and meets up with Rad and Enid, and it's revealed that they went through the same shit. Because the trap here was psychological. Professor Venomous had created goo clones that are like actual clones made from their DNA using their real memories and everything. They're basically people in and of themselves. And the trap is that they are violently and horrifically killed in front of each of them to psychologically torture them. Like, again, like I said in the reaction, that's not just fucked up in terms of, like, kids' show standards. That's just really fucked. Like, that is so fucking dark. That might be the darkest thing this show has done. Like, without exaggeration. And this show has delved into some dark stuff. It absolutely has, but that might be the single darkest thing this show has done. It's wild to think about. That he would go that far to fuck with them in such a horrific way. They end up confronting Professor Venomous, but it's soon revealed that these Enid and Rad. I don't know why his name escaped my mind for a second there. This Enid and Rad are also goo clones, and the real ones eventually come in again after that. And it's just like at that point, I legitimately asked, "Is this KO even the real one, or is this a clone?" Because he wouldn't know. That's the fucking thing. He would not know. Because he has all the memories and everything of the real KO. He would think he's the real one. That is fucked up. But after fighting Venomous, they end up being launched through the roof, and that would have caused them to splat for sure. Especially when they landed back at the bodega. They are very much confirmed to be the real ones by the end. But it's like, Jesus fuck. It's like you just like went like straight to 100 with no warning. And it's like, my God. Like, how do you do that? How does this show be super goofy and silly and ridiculous one moment, and then just introduce something that like would not be out of place for like a very serious adult series, like I don't know, Scavenger's Reign or something like that, which is, you know, very psychological and intense. Like, I could imagine this in something like that, but in OKKO, a show marketed towards children, I only hope that the kids just didn't understand how fucked up that is and aren't, like, scarred from that. Oh, that's a lot. That is a lot. But after that, we had Whatever Happened to Rippy Roo, which apparently is the 100th episode of this series. So that's pretty interesting. This episode, I was kind of in the middle with. I didn't, like, hate it or anything, but I wasn't, like, a huge fan of it either. Because the problem with this episode for me is that it focused on the wrong shit. So the episode, like, starts off with Dendy and KO looking at their cards. We have a lot of callbacks. We have a Blue Eyes White Dragon reference. And then when heading back with his mom, KO mentions Rippy Roo. And they just coincidentally happen to happen upon him after having a fake out with Crinkly Wrinkly. This could have been such an important, powerful episode, especially for being the 100th episode of the show. It could have been so big. But instead, they decided to focus the A-plot on KO trying to get his cards back from this mechanical enemy inside Rippy Roo's pouch. There's a B-plot that has Carol talking to Rippy Roo and learning about, like, why he left Point all those years ago why he never told any of them why he left and everything. Talking about Laser Blast having been trapped and everything. It's like the important stuff that we really should have been focusing on is relegated to a B plot. And all it is exposition. It's just Rippy Roo making the silly noises. Thanks for that, Ashley Birch. And Carol just repeating what he said. It's literally exposition. Why? Why do you tease us so? The exposition, like what we're actually learning and what we're like finding out about and talking about, is like so fascinating and interesting. I don't give a shit about like KO's card binder being taken by this mecha monster thing. I don't care about that. I don't want to see that. Yet that's the A plot. That's the focus of the episode. Not, this long lost hero coming back out of nowhere and reuniting with an old friend and discussing important shit that is excessively relevant to the plot of the show. No, we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on a silly little, what should be a side plot instead. I'm so dumbstruck by the decision to do it that way. It makes no sense to me. But the thing is, I can't say I didn't like this episode because the interesting stuff was so interesting. It was so fascinating and so important. The fact that it was relegated to a B plot also, though, keeps me from saying it's a good episode. So it's just kind of in the middle for me in this weird nebulous gray area where it's like, I just don't know what to think about this. It's like there's so much important, interesting, exciting information, but the way it's handled is like really poorly. It's weird, and I don't know. But at least it's in that gray area, unlike the third episode here. Planet X, the idea of it is fine. The concept is fine. The execution is so fucking bland. Outside of the one surprise about Coach ending up being his grandfather, which, if you think about it, that's also been very much done before. This entire episode was like so generically boring. Oh, this eccentric character goes home to meet his family, finds out they're not like what he thought, but then finds a part of them that is, and he tries to find where he belongs, finding out he kind of has similarities to both sides, but also doesn't really belong to either, is kind of his own thing. And in the end, kind of learns to embrace just who he is as himself. And yeah, because this plot's never been done anywhere before. The problem is, I'm fine with shows like this using plot concepts that have been done before, because you kind of have to. With a show that's very episodic like this, you kind of have to recycle plot ideas from other shows, movies, etc. Things that have just been done in pop culture in the past. You have to. But the way to do it is by making it unique. Putting your own unique twist on it that makes it feel new again. That makes it feel fresh, even if it's technically not. This episode had nothing new to offer to this idea. This conceptual plot was so by the numbers that it was boring. It didn't do anything unique. It didn't do anything like surprising. The only reason the grandfather thing surprised me is because I just didn't think about it. It just didn't cross my mind. That's the only reason it surprised me. It wasn't actually like this big, like, unbelievable twist. And it's like, I feel like it just had nothing to offer. Like, yeah, young kids watching this will get something out of it because they're young kids and they haven't seen this 100 million times. But like the older kids, the older teens, the adults watching this are not going to get anything from it because they've already seen this so many times and they've seen it done better. And here's the thing, some people are going to try and say like, "Oh, but this show isn't made for the older teens. It's not made for the adults. It's made for the kids." And it's like, I hate this argument so goddamn much. Because one, it looks down on children. It treats children as lesser and it's looking down on them. That's not okay. You should always want to challenge a child's mind as they watch any show. And if you're creating a show, you should want to create something that's challenging, that makes them think and makes them learn. A show like this that is like, even though it's very episodic, it is a kind of a plot-oriented show. You want to do things with it that challenges them. The Goo Clone episode is very challenging. Like, kids are maybe not going to understand exactly why it's so dark and intense and scary and fucked up, but they're going to think about that. That's going to stick with them to a degree. And it's just like, this is something that I don't think will. It might entertain them and it might give them some lesson, but it's like they're going to find things that are better and that tell this lesson better. Trying to use the excuse that something is made for kids as an excuse for it being poorly made is honestly insulting. It's not okay. You should want kids' shows to be good for them. And also, on top of that, any show that only appeals to a single audience is not a good show. A good show will have a larger appeal. It will have a larger possible fan base. Because a good show is something that will be able to appeal to more. That will be able, that people outside of maybe its targeted demographic can still find value in. Look at fucking Bluey. Like, Bluey is without question a preschooler show, right? Like Dora the Explorer. But unlike Dora the Explorer, Bluey has like some really deep shit in it. It's famous for that. To the point where there are adults who watch it without having kids. They watch it on their own because it helps them with shit. Because it doesn't talk down to its audience. Whether that be kids, adults, anyone. It understands that this is stuff that anyone can benefit from. And it makes sure to treat its viewers, no matter who they are, respectfully. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic did the same thing. It handled some very tough topics that kids aren't going to fully understand. Hell, a lot of adults don't fully understand some of the stuff that was in MLP. Let's be honest. There was some heavy shit in there. Xenophobia, racism, not really communist, but more of just a cult, I guess you could say, in general. It just wild shit. Wild shit. And there's so many shows that, like, yeah, are targeted towards a child demographic as its main audience, but have so much in it that can and do appeal to adults. That's why so many adults watch these cartoons. Because they get something of value from it. If your cartoon is poorly made and only appeals to one demographic, that's not a good thing. That's not what any creator should want from their show. That's not what you should go for. You should want to reach the largest amount of audience you can. The only kind of big exception to this is when you're making an adult series. If you're making an adult animated series, you don't want it to appeal to kids because you don't want kids watching it, especially if it involves sexual content or, gratuitous violence and gore and stuff like some of these adult animated shows do. It's like, yeah, kids shouldn't be watching that. It's like swearing is one thing. Kids probably shouldn't be exposed to too much of that, but they're going to anyway. But, like, there's certain elements in some of these adult shows that kids should not be seeing. But those shows, that's a little different too, because it's like those are made for an adult audience, but it's also stuff that's just not appropriate. Younger content that's like geared towards a child audience isn't inappropriate for an adult to watch. It's just, in a lot of cases, you might say, like, oh, there's not really a reason for an adult to watch this. But a lot of those shows that do this, like, they're not as big, you notice. Bluey is so huge because it treats its audience with so much respect and treats them as if they're worthy of being not talked down to, but looked up at and like held up to high regard. It treats them so well that it's made this massive splash. There's this reaction channel I watch called Previewed, with these two named Jay and Adam on it. They're watching Bluey on the channel because Jay is a new father, but he and his best friend, both of whom are like in their 30s, are just watching Bluey. Not with the kid, not with Jay's kid, just on their own, and they're enjoying the shit out of it. Hell, if I haven't watched the reactions, but if the thumbnails are anything to go by, Jay's crying from it. And these two are very in touch with their emotions and are very open to crying. Squid Game. The Squid Game reactions were the first I discovered with them, and things get very emotional with them in that series. But yeah, it's like I really love that this show can appeal to them like that. And all of this is to say, of course, with this episode, this doesn't appeal to everyone. This episode is so by the numbers, so basic, so bland. It doesn't do anything new with this concept. That the only people it's going to really appeal to is the youngest audience that watches it. The kids who just, again, don't know better. There's just so many better shows that do this kind of like nerd versus jock concept, the idea of finding where you fit in, etc., etc. These are all things that have been done in so many other shows. Just look for something else. You'll find better. And I want to make clear, I'm just sharing my opinions, my thoughts. If you like this episode, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong to like the episode. I'm not fucking cruel like that. At least I hope I'm not. I try not to be. If you really do like this episode, that's fine. It's all subjective. It's all opinion. I'm just sharing mine. It's so bland to me. It's so boring and basic. It just doesn't do anything with this concept. And it just feels wasted. It really does. So that's why I'm kind of mixed on this set. We have an episode I really loved. We have an episode I'm just kind of in this middle gray area in. And we have an episode that I didn't really like at all. And for some pretty interesting reasons, too. But that's kind of what this kind of show is going to give to you. It's a very episodic show. Some episodes won't work. That's just how it goes. And I'm okay with that. Because the ones that really work, the ones that are really good. Like when this show is at its best, it's like really damn good. The thing is, it is inconsistent, but a show like this almost has to be because of the style of comedy it's going for. It would feel weird if it wasn't inconsistent. So I'm okay with some episodes just not working. As long as we get ones that do, and we did get one that does in this set. We got one that is exceptionally good and fucking terrifying. Also, it has Venom's profile picture in it, so that's fun. But tell me your thoughts down in the comments below on these 3 episodes. And thank you so much for tuning in. As always, no spoilers. I mentioned in the pre-thoughts, I don't know where this is going. I know one thing about the finale, and I think that's pretty much it for the season. I don't want to be spoiled. I'm doing my best to avoid that, so please, no spoilers. But I would love to hear your thoughts on these 3 episodes nonetheless, so thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.